Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze Gabriel Martinelli's productivity in the final third from wide areas. So in today's video, first we're going to briefly analyze Arsenal's left side rotations, then we'll shift to Martinelli's impact in the final third, and then we'll solely focus on his 1v1 threat down the left-hand side. When we break it all down and we do look at the board, what we end up seeing is Arsenal in their 4-3-3 that at times could be a 4-2-3-1 with Xhaka a bit deeper near to Thomas Partey and Odegaard floating in behind Gabriel Jesus, but then also popping up into pockets of space on that right-hand side, or shifting towards the touchline while Saka drifts laterally in towards that central area. But when we focus on the left, what we used to see from Arsenal was that with Tierney bombing forward down that left flank, you'd see Xhaka dropping into an inside left position, and then Martinelli either occupying the fullback by checking in towards the ball and trying to receive it in a pocket of space, or him drifting in towards a central position to serve as another attacking outlet. This season, we've witnessed a bit more variation from Arsenal, and that has stemmed from the fact that they now have Zinchenko in that left back role, but we've also seen Tierney looking to drop in towards that midfield area to form more of a 3-2-5, with Xhaka pushing forward into that gap between the right back and the center back, and Martinelli hugging the touchline. From there, you have Martinelli and Saka operating as inverted wingers, looking to cut onto their stronger foot to serve as a legitimate goal threat, and with Zinchenko and Xhaka adopting narrow positions, they're pulling away markers and providing that free passing lane to get Martinelli on the ball. The other alternative for Arsenal in those positions would be to have Martinelli drifting laterally into that space between the center back and the right back, but he's no longer on a consistent basis looking to check in towards the ball so the fullback can push forward. He's now getting himself into legitimate goal scoring positions, and frankly, when you analyze his goals this season, they've come from that central position or from a deeper area in that midfield zone, and from there he'd make runs into central space rather than receiving the ball on that left touchline. While that isn't a concern because he is Arsenal's joint leading goal scorer in the Premier League, there's certainly room for improvement down that left touchline zone. He receives the ball in that area, and there are some good things that he does in terms of ball retention, as you often see him checking in towards the ball, and there is tight pressure from one and sometimes two defenders due to his overall threat in the final third, and a lot of teams are wary of his pace and his running in behind. So they stick tight on him, and what he does very well is that he's capable of keeping the ball despite that pressure, holding off defenders, and then linking with his teammates, whether it be dropping off the ball to a teammate to ensure that Arsenal retain possession, or squaring it to a teammate to help Arsenal progress their attack. This is equally as important for Arsenal when he drifts in towards those central areas looking to receive the ball between the lines, and he does do a very good job of either winning fouls and dragging markers towards him to create space for other teammates, or like I said, simply retaining possession and linking play or progressing Arsenal's attack. But the main hurdle preventing Martinelli from taking that next step into a legitimate elite superstar is his ability to make the correct decision when he gets into 1v1 positions and posing a consistent threat when he gets into the final third. What you often see is that he does receive the ball in that zone, and from there Arsenal are creating space for Martinelli to run at the opposing side's fullback or wingback, and that's why you often see Xhaka pushing up high to occupy his center back or his midfield marker, and that's where you often see Zinchenko or Tierney drifting into central areas to pull markers towards them. This gives Martinelli an advantage, and we've often seen him at his best when he makes those runs in behind the opposing side's backline from that left touchline position to get himself into an area where he could test a goalkeeper.
In this example, you witness Odegaard picking up the ball ahead of Eriksen and focus on Bruno not picking up Martinelli. When Odegaard looks to put the ball on towards his left foot, Eriksen doesn't close him down, and when you look to the back post, you see there's a 2v1. As that ball is clipped into the area, you could see that Bruno was tight on Xhaka, but now he has to retreat towards Martinelli, and the ball floats over his head and places Martinelli in a position where he nods a point-blank effort at De Gea, who pushes it away. Then you witness Arsenal breaking in transition where Thomas Partey slides the ball into the path of Saka and focus on on Martinelli's movement. He looks to make a bending, arcing run in between the two defenders. Saka locates that run, and as he looks to break off that high line, Saka splits the two defenders to place Martinelli in a position where he could break forward in towards the penalty area. From there, he carries the ball in towards that zone and drags away Smith, and he has the run of Xhaka breaking in towards the box late, and he should square the ball across towards him for a tap-in, but he continues to carry the ball in towards right half space and fires a wayward effort over the net.
He does get some help from the fullback and particularly Xhaka, who does make forward runs in beyond the fullback, and at times we've seen Gabriel Jesus do the same thing, where he's been in a deeper position and he makes an underlapping run to serve as a passing outlet. The same thing can be said for fullbacks making overlapping runs. We often see that from Tierney more than Zinchenko, but when they're making those runs in towards those zones, Martinelli often does a very good job of finding them to help progress the play, to exploit the numerical advantage down that left touchline area. The other key advantage to those underlapping runs from Jesus or Xhaka, or the overlapping runs from Tierney and Zinchenko, is that it creates space for Martinelli to cut onto a stronger right foot and serve as a legitimate goal threat from and around the edge of the area. But it's when Martinelli gets into 1v1 situations, whether it be in transition or through the overall flow of the game, he struggles to have an impact due to his poor decision making. If he's in a 1v1 with the fullback, he often goes towards the outside and tries to use his speed or a drop of a shoulder to break towards the byline, but because he's so heavily reliant on that right foot, he doesn't cross it with his left to pick out a teammate, and in those situations he'll look to use his right foot to dribble in towards the area and then awkwardly look to pick out a teammate once he gets in towards that zone.
Here you witness some 2v2 action with Martinelli against Castagna, and Tielemans tracking the movement of Xhaka. As Martinelli carries the ball slowly forward, you can see that Fofana calls off Tielemans to push towards Martinelli to make it a 1v2, and the center back will pick up Xhaka's run. Martinelli's aware of that, and he does beat Tielemans initially, but now you can see Castagna's there for cover. His second touch is poor, and now the defender does get across Martinelli to throw him off, and that's where you see Fofana stepping in to break up the play and clear danger.
In those situations, he often resorts to winning a corner kick, or he fires a tame effort on goal and hopes that the keeper smothers it for a rebound, or at the very worst, he wins a corner from that regard. If that isn't the case, he often hesitates and then he struggles to beat the fullback. In most situations, he often doesn't. We witnessed this often in Arsenal's loss against Man United, where Dalot did a very good job of forcing Martinelli towards that byline and blocking off his cutback or simply winning possession.
Against Man United, you have Martinelli in a 1v1 against Dalot, and as he carries the ball in towards the penalty area, you could see that United do a very good job of blocking off the pullback options. That results in Martinelli dragging the ball towards the byline, and what you end up seeing at that back post is that he has two free players that are peeling off their markers who are making a run towards the 6-yard area, but rather than clipping the ball into that zone, he fires a low effort at De Gea for a corner. Following Martinelli dispossessing Cash, you can see that he's now looking to carry the ball down the left channel against Aston Villa. He drags away the holding midfielder, and you can see that there are Arsenal players breaking towards the penalty area. As he carries the ball towards that zone, the midfielder doesn't get tight, so now there's an open lane for Martinelli to use a quick shift of pace to break towards the byline, and from this position, there's no passing option unless it's Saka peeling towards the back post. He drags away the center back, and the defender strays away from Saka, and from here he should be clipping the ball towards Saka at the back post, but he attempts an outside foot effort on goal that's blocked for a corner.
If that isn't the case, that's where you often witness Martinelli's hesitance resulting in a 1v2, whether it be the fullback's attacking player dropping off deeper to provide cover, or the shuttler shifting laterally to provide cover to ensure that he can't cut into central areas. This isn't necessarily a bad thing due to the personnel that Arsenal possess, and in those situations, if it's a 1v2, Martinelli could often drop the ball off into the path of a Zinchenko or a Tierney to deliver a cross from that narrow inside left position, or simply play it back towards the edge of the box for a midfielder to recycle the play. In many of these situations where Martinelli does make the right decision, there is movement involved, so it does drag away markers, and it creates space and time for him to pick out a teammate to play the ball to, even if it's simply a square pass, and that helps Martinelli's decision making in the final third. But even when you look to Arsenal's winner against Aston Villa, you could see that Tierney's just beginning to make the run before he does play that square pass into the path of Tomiyasu. From there, you would assume that the play is dead, but Martinelli does locate that Cash isn't picking up his movement, and when Saka receives the ball, Martinelli becomes the beneficiary from playing that pass square to the teammate. Saka sizes up Mings, and that's when Martinelli now gets himself in into the goal scoring positions that he has been effective in this season. And you could see that Saka picks him out because you see Cash retreating towards the 6-yard area, and he finds Martinelli unmarked, making a run towards that zone to fire a first-time effort beyond Martinez.
In the build-up to Arsenal's opener against Villa, you have Martinelli breaking down the left channel against Cash and focus on Xhaka's movement. He makes a run off the two midfielders in towards left half space, and he's calling for the ball, and Martinelli identifies that run and he drags two players towards him, and that's where he does a good job of splitting them to find Xhaka, placing him in this position where he identifies that the defender isn't stepping towards him, and he fires a low effort on goal that the keeper does a very poor job of dealing with, and that places Gabriel Jesus in a position to put Arsenal up 1-0.
However, the issue that Martinelli has is that when he gets into these 1v1s, even if he does win the initial first challenge, he looks to break beyond the defender when he should be looking to play a pullback or a square pass in towards his teammate, and that results in him losing possession.
Here you see the ball being shifted out to Martinelli with Tierney and Xhaka in narrow central midfield positions, and he pulls away Ramsey, and from there he should be looking to break across the midfielder towards the byline. He does a very good job of doing that, and he breaks away from the challenge, but now is when he has to play the ball into Xhaka, who's free in that left half space zone. He doesn't do that, and he slows up the attack, and that allows Xhaka to be closed down, and it allows Ramsey to recover. From here you see Martinelli looking to carry the ball backwards, and it allows Ramsey to step in to make a challenge and win possession. And then you see a similar incident against Leicester where you have Tielemans protecting Castagna when Martinelli receives the ball, and from there you have Xhaka again making that run into left half space, but Martinelli opts to not poke it towards him, and that's where you see him looking to drag the ball towards the byline, and when you look at the penalty area, Odegaard and Saka are outnumbered. That results in Martinelli carrying the ball towards the byline. He's closed down by two defenders, and he ultimately resorts for a pullback, but from there he's not going to connect with any of the Arsenal players, and he ends up losing possession against Tielemans.
And then the same thing can be said about those 1v1s down the touchline where he simply doesn't identify the numerical advantage towards the far post, and at times he has his teammates in overloads in those areas, but he'd prefer to run towards the byline to try and get a pullback or beat his initial defender, and that ultimately impedes a legitimate goal scoring opportunity for Arsenal. So what you often see is that when Arsenal present Martinelli in those 1v1 situations, you could see that there are times where he simply drags markers towards him and creates space for the pullback for a better crossing opportunity or simply recycling the play, and he doesn't do that. And then there are times where he should simply square the ball to ensure that Arsenal retain possession, but in those situations he'd rather take on the defender or break towards the byline, and that ultimately sees him get dispossessed. Or there's the occasion where he gets the ball in towards those 1v1 positions, or at times even 1v2s, and he simply plays a poor pass in towards a teammate that's not there, forcing the attack and ultimately giving back possession towards the opposition. From deeper positions, he has more time to pick out a pass, but sometimes if the run or the pass isn't there, you simply slow down the play and drop it off to a teammate. However, in many situations, Martinelli would attempt to force the pass that isn't there, and he simply gives the ball back towards the opposition. And then in situations where he's in 1v1s or 1v2s, he drags markers towards him, and while there are runs in tight spaces, the pass simply isn't there, and you'll force it to halt the overall attack. So as you can see, at the young age of 21, Gabriel Martinelli is already one of Arsenal's key attacking outlets on their quest for top 4, and if he can improve his productivity on a consistent basis, the Brazilian possesses the potential to develop into an elite Premier League star.